Well, it's good to be with you today. I'm here with Pastor Jeremy Oldenburger. We're pastors in the same town, right here in Modesto, California, and we're here to really engage a few things. One, we want to interact regarding the Supreme Court decision from 12 days ago regarding abortion. We want to talk about how the Supreme Court rulings from the past have interacted in our lives, how it's impacted our story. We want to talk about the significance of the Supreme Court decision and really what some counsel for the church would be. So we're glad that you're with us. Pastor Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be able to just interact with you a little bit on this important topic. So
awesome.
Yep.
Well, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to read to you the first half of what is a core statement from the syllabus of the Supreme Court. Just want to have you interact with this. It says, the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled. Why don't you interact with that a little bit?
Well, when I first heard about this decision that was overturned, I was in Hawaii, and I literally began to cry. Just tears started coming down my face because I think that it's been just decades of prayer that have finally been answered. And so super thankful for that, but also you've got the 5 Supreme Court justices that it would have been real easy for one of them to fold. I believe that a lot of them had their lives threatened in this whole season process because word came out that this was going to happen. And so for them to be willing to risk their life to do what was right, I just have a ton of respect for them because I think as Christians, we've really lost the ability to count the cost to do what's right. And so just respect for people that are willing to count the cost and do what's right has been something that's just been really exciting.
Awesome. Boldness to stand on the truth. Interact a little bit with how your life, your story has been impacted regarding the issue of abortion.
Well, I've got a son that's 18 years old. He has special needs. Great son, changed my life. His name is Jacob. We stepped out in faith and had another child, knowing that there was a large possibility we'd have miscarriages, more special needs children. So Drew was born a couple of years later, and that was enough for my wife, Kelly. It was a really stressful pregnancy, and so we started really just praying about adopting and praying, and God put that on our heart, and my 16-year-old cousin ended up getting pregnant, and by God's grace, she did not have an abortion. She kept the child, and as God works in mysterious ways, crazy ways, we ended up adopting my cousin's baby when she was 16 years old, and so our prayer was answered with her willingness to choose life, and so that's had a radical impact on my life, and the fact that, even as children of God, we're ultimately all adopted. We're adopted children. And so this whole concept of adoption from people willing to choose life has radically just impacted my life and blessed me. In fact, how many kids do you have that you've adopted, Joel?
Well, we have 9 children, and we've welcomed 5 children into our home through the California foster care system.
Wow.
And we believe that this was a significant call on our life.
Yeah.
To say yes to God and welcome children into our home. And when I think about this issue, similar to what you have described here, I just can't imagine any of my 5 children that we've welcomed into our home. I can't imagine that their life would not exist. And I'm so thankful that their biological parents, even in incredibly difficult circumstances, chose to have them be born. And I'm thankful that God lined it up for our family to be able to welcome them into our home.
So. Yeah, absolutely. So we've both been impacted by people willing to choose life.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right, even in really, really hard situations.
Yeah.
Well, the second half of this statement, it says, an authority to regulate abortion is returned to the people and their elected representatives. And that's really the shift from 12 days ago regarding the Supreme Court decision. So what do you think is the significance now regarding this Supreme Court decision?
Well, unfortunately, now it's gone to a state level. And so us being California, I believe California and New York most likely have the loosest abortion policies, and it may get even more loose. And so I think for Christians, we need to pray now more than ever. We need to support Modesto Pregnancy Center. We need to come alongside single moms that are choosing life and provide for them diapers, groceries, everything that we can. California, I think, is going to have its work cut out, and it's a great opportunity for churches and Christians to really rise up and be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. What would be your encouragement in that rising up for the church? What does that look like? What would you want to say to the church that, hey, this is the way that we should be thinking and acting at this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's two things. I think our attitudes and our actions need to reflect Christ. And when I say our attitudes, we need to be people that are humble. We need to be people that are compassionate. We need to be people that are gracious and generous. One of the things, Joel, is that there's a lot of Christians that have had a past. Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And when something like this comes out, the realness and the rawness and the guilt and shame of having an abortion in the past can just be really hard for a lot of people. And so we need to make sure that we're talking about God's grace and God's forgiveness and God's compassion in that way. But also, I think Christians can make this a political issue instead of a spiritual issue. And if we're not careful, pride will creep into our lives and we create a larger divide between ourselves and the people we ultimately want to reach. And so I think we need to celebrate with humility, but in that celebration, we have to have attitudes and actions that count the cost, because a lot of times Christians want to celebrate something that will cost them nothing. And so we need to be people that are willing to say, okay, we're going to celebrate this, but we're going to support Modesto Pregnancy Center. We're going to celebrate this, but we need to pray about fostering a child, adopting a child. We're going to celebrate this, but boy, maybe we will open our home and we're going to have a single mom who's 18 years old come and live with us for a season because we want to put our money where our mouth is. And I think a lot of Christians want to do the rah, 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 but when it comes to actually sacrifice, there's nothing. There's crickets. And so I think ultimately attitudes and actions that reflect the heartbeat of Jesus.
That's awesome. You talked about the grace of God, and one passage I would maybe just share as an encouragement as we close here is at the beginning of the Gospel of John. It says in chapter 1, verse 16, for from his fullness, so from the fullness of God, from the fullness of Jesus Christ, we have all received grace upon grace.
I love that.
Got grace, and then God puts more grace on top of that. And for us to be a people of grace and to accept the grace of God for ourselves and to be very willing to extend the grace of God to others who have found themselves in very difficult situations, but have come to a place to where they want to turn to the Lord.
Absolutely.
And they want to seek the face of Jesus Christ and His forgiveness. And for us to be a people of grace.
Yep, absolutely. And I love before that a little bit, and Jesus came full of grace and truth. And so I think that's one of the things that churches need to lean into, because often there's a whole lot of grace but no truth. There's a whole lot of truth but no grace. And what would it look like for us to be Christians in this season that we're like Jesus, where we never compromise the truth, but we're full of grace? And so I think that needs to be our heartbeat as Christians in this season.
And with that, we'll close on that thought. Thank you, Pastor Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
And thanks for being with us. And we're going to continue to resource the church regarding issues that we might be equipped and encouraged in following Christ in this culture.
Yep, awesome.
Thanks.
Have a great day.